see here. So we are now recording. Yeah, Kate, do you want to go first?
Actually, Jeremy is worried I'm going to say disparaging things about him in my presentation, and he should be home. He gets off of work at 7, so like he should be home in like 15 minutes or so.
All right.
So would it be okay if I didn't go first? So
I don't know. You gotta beg Bob and see if Bob will go instead.
Bob, will you go?
I'd have to connect to a whole bunch of
I can go right now, Chris. I've got one.
Oh my God, we're gonna let Casey lead this show. Jesus,
I want to ask Bob really quickly. Bob, where are you? It's so clean. Like there's like, it's a futuristic looking place.
Yeah,
where is that?
Talk about that.
Okay.
That's what his talk is.
Yeah, so my kids are outside playing on their little slip and slide all day long, and the thing runs continuously. And I got my water bill last month, and I said, oh, no more, not going to happen anymore. So I put together a little motion sensor that fires an Arduino, that turns the pump on, and then recycles the water. So the kids now can play as much as they like outside, don't care. Whenever they're ready to go, they just run past it, and it's all motion sensor, and it flips this. I didn't want them touching the switches or anything like that, you know, because I don't want them to get electrocuted because I actually love them. I mean, they're angels, and I'd like to just keep them alive. But, I mean, other than that, yeah, it's kind of a cool thing. I got little quick connects for it. It's all secured, and internally it's all waterproof. Some cool things I learned was you could actually make a really nice gasket if you put silicone into a plastic bag and use it like a pipette like you do for frosting. And if you have a little routed thing, you can just kind of ease it along and have a lot of control over it. And that worked really, really well. But I really liked it a lot. It was a lot of fun. I'm still learning a little more about Arduino. It's kind of funny. I'm a programmer, but I know nothing about the low-level stuff. So this is just me trying to work my way into it. I've got a couple more projects planned. I'm pretty excited for it. And I've already started doing some testing and whatnot, but I'll hopefully at another meeting, I'll be able to bring those up. So that was there you go. Hopefully I bought enough time for Bob. You good, Bob? Or do you need me to keep going?
I know we have questions, Casey.
What's inside of this box here, buddy? That's, I think, I want to know.
Well, I've got 3 switches. I've got 2 sets of outlets on the back too, because you've got a blower. So sometimes you want to turn the blower on, turn it off, but still keep the pump going because you want to use the water from the from the kids' play area to water the trees or the lawns or what have you. So, or the grass. So we've got that in the back, and then so you've got 2 sets of switches that run 2 sets of. So your 3 switches. One of them's for your Arduino and your pump that just arms your pump. The other 2 are for the back switches back here that run. And I mean, inside of it's just I found a DC pump, pretty nice one from the Pond guy. But I will say this: those guys must have huge margins because they are remarketed to me everywhere. I can't escape their marketing. They're everywhere. I've already bought from them. They just keep marketing me. It's ridiculous. I don't need anything else. But yeah, that's that. And then then it's essentially just an Arduino. We've just got that basic, motion sensor that you can tie into. It's just kind of an open library. You just grab it, throw it on. There's a couple things you have to kind of adjust to just, get the sensitivity down. But at a 45 where it's sitting, any kid that runs past it, it's all IR based, just triggers it essentially. Did that answer your question or no?
Wait, I have questions.
Could you not find the, I'm sure they've got a coin detector for Arduino. I mean, I figured the kids have got to pay back this bill somehow.
It's a good idea, actually. I might add that. Love it.
Casey, I think I have more questions about how it's set up. So, okay, there are 2 plumbing connections. One I assume is the input from the house. The other is the output to the, what's it called, the slip and slide?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just kids' toy. It's a big inflatable slide.
Okay.
But I'm too heavy.
And then you've got like what, a valve to open the water, or a DC pump to pump the water?
What it does is it triggers a pump that will pump the water, and then pushes the water up. So it pulls the water and then fires the water up to the top. So
normally the slip and slide, doesn't it just connect to the house under the pressure from the, okay.
We run it until it's full, and then we connect. In fact, I should hold on and grab it.
I was gonna say, this is a modern slip and slide with a catchment at the bottom. So there's like a basin at the base to run into. Because, kids today, if they slid into the grass, they might get like scuffed knees. So you have to have a product liability to land in a pool of water at the bottom. So
yeah, so the pump came with this filter that I cut apart, and then I remade it. so that it would, be something that would be quick connect again, that you could just drop this in. There's a big stone in the side of this, so it weights really nicely onto the ground. So the one hose goes in, sets, and then inside this, you probably can't see this, but on the inside of this, there's just kind of like a mesh netting that allows, like, the big things like grass and things that kids, kind of pull into the pool as they're just running through the lawn and whatnot. But that's all kept on the outside. So this is your feed. I was a little concerned about the feed because the feed and the outlet are the same size, and that's typically a no-no. You typically want your feed, tube to be bigger, just because the pump doesn't typically like taking a source from the same size into the other. But it did work out, and I think that's because the restriction at the end of the slide is about half this. So it was able to purge it, and it works quite nice. So.
Okay, so then my next question is, it's a DC pump. So what are all the outlets on the back of your device for? And why put them there in the box that gets covered in water?
Those are for the tasers for the kids.
No, so this box actually sits outside of the pool and away from it.
Right.
So this is your inlet here. So this would have a hose coming off with a quick connect.
Right.
And you would have this connected to that, and that's in the pool. So it starts pulling the water, it draws the water out, and then it jettisons it out the top one here. And that goes up the slide.
But what is the four set of outlet on the back for?
Oh, that's just for us to have other stuff back there, because we've got a blower, we've got a light, we've got a bunch of other stuff. So instead of having another power strip attached to it and making it look a little,
okay.
This is just kind of a convenience factor, I guess.
Okay.
And I'm assuming you're using an outside outlet that's GFI'd to plug all this into?
Oh yeah, of course.
Very good.
It's all grounded. I grounded it all. Made sure.
Nice job. Proud of you. That's all I care about.
No one's gonna die at my house. That's.
And I'll be honest, Casey. I don't care about you, but I've got hope for your kids yet. So.
Well, I appreciate that honesty.
Well, this will be
Good, Scott.
the deck. We're gonna do a water slide off the edge, so to get the coin operated thing in conjunction, I think that's gonna be a perfect feature.
Well, I've actually got even a cooler thing I'm working on right now that I'm not going to talk a lot about it right now because I don't want to like sell myself too high, but I'm working on some pretty cool stuff. I've got a couple axes moving around on this thing. It's a pretty fun toy. We'll see if we can get it working. I don't think I'll have it done next month, but maybe 2 months I might have it done. We'll have to see. But I laid out, I did a lot of the CAD work and the SolidWorks stuff, and I was showing it to my wife, and she's just like, dude, that's intense. Like, and so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think the kids will like it too.
Any other questions from anybody for Mr. Casey? All right. Mr. Bob, looks like you get your phone figured out.
Yeah, I did.
Awesome.
So this is my room. And a year ago, I moved into this house with Danielle. But before I did that, I wanted to finish the basement so that I would have my own bedroom and office, because it was important to both of us that we have our separate space for alone time. And so I finished the basement, which meant removing everything that was in here first, and then putting Drylock on the concrete walls, and then putting in 2-inch insulation. I used polyiso, which is has a higher R value for the thickness. So, and it's only a tiny bit more expensive, so I think it's the way to go. But then I did 2x4 framing over the top of that, and then there's sheetrock. Oh, and I did R11 fiberglass insulation inside of the 2x4 framing, and then I did all of the wiring myself, and had it inspected, and the guy was impressed, and I passed the inspection with flying colors, so that was cool. And there are 10 outlets in this room, so, and it's got its own breaker, so that's cool. Then I also did the ceilings. So there's now R19 insulation. And then there's, what's it called? It's a floating ceiling, basically. So there's some metal channel so that the fiber or the channel is attached to the joists, and then the sheetrock is attached to the channel offset. so that it's hanging from the channel and not mechanically coupled to the joists. And that's supposed to reduce sound. So then I put in some recessed lighting as well. And you can see that one of the lights is off, and that's because I have meetings throughout the day when I'm sitting here, and it was too bright to have that one light right behind me on all the time. And so I just unplugged it. But anyway, I'm going to show you around the room. So we've got an egress window. This was one of two things that I didn't do. I did not install the egress window, and I did not put in the carpeting. But everything else was all me. So, it's not focused. Okay, so there's, I got my bins over here, and some of them are labeled, but for the most part, I know what's in them. The important part for me is that I have them divided mostly by project, and some of the bins are by what components are in them, which is, I guess, just like Sector, but they're all my bins. So, and then I've got a bed here, and here's my office half. And I've got a nice big desk with my computers. I liberated a 3D printer from work so that I can do some prototyping at home. And then over here is Airy. So Airy is an artificial lung that I built at Sector. And the intent is it's basically like a big syringe. So when you lift this up, it then pulls air into this and sucks it through this tube. And the whole point of that is for work, where I am testing out inhalers. There we go. So sensors for inhalers, and I'm measuring the breath that's flowing through the inhaler. So having an artificial lung is important. Anyway, moving on to some of the Star Trek related stuff. So you'll see this channel up here. This is, it's aluminum channel with LED strips, RGB LED strips. And I managed to get, there's two separate Wi-Fi LED controllers on them. And the reason for that is because there's so many LEDs that one controller would not be able to supply all of the LEDs. So it's split into two, and they're basically the two halves of the room. I had to make a small hole and route the wire through this bulkhead, but that wasn't a terrible deal. And okay, so one of the cool things that I can do is my lights are on a dimmer, and so I can make it dim, right? But this thing is also Wi-Fi controlled. So I can say something like, computer, set Concord brightness to 10%. Sweet, huh? And since the Wi-Fi RGB strips are also connected, I can say stuff like, computer, red alert. Right? Okay.
That is sweet.
I love it.
That's awesome.
I can tell Casey's trying to match the red, you know?
Yeah, I'm right there. I'm in Sector Orange right now. Orange, Chris, orange. Or is it red now? Whatever you want it to be. It's fine.
So most of the time, I just have, I have an IR remote, and I just use that because it's faster and easier to change the color and do whatever I want. And so I have one remote on my desk and one remote next to my bed.
Thank you.
And then now we're going to talk about the coolest part of this room, which is the door. So let's see. See the button?
That's crazy awesome.
Right? Okay. It gets even better. Okay, so there's a 5-year-old that lives at this house, and I don't want him coming in my room. So I've created a way for only me to get in, and that is this tablet. So the tablet has a widget on the home screen, so that if I enter in the password, then it opens. If I put in the wrong password, then it makes the appropriate sound to say that you failed. Also, this green is a status. So if I say, well, I have to be inside to do this. So if I say something like, computer, I'm busy, then, and it might not do it. Oh, there we go. So see, it says busy now. And we've got the 5-year-old trained so that if he sees that it's busy, then he doesn't even come down and knock on the door. And he can see it from the top of the stairs. So it's pretty quiet when I don't want to be disturbed.
If he knocks on the door, can you just like say computer open door from inside?
Computer, door.
Is there a manual reversion?
So, okay, so no. and actually, so you have to unplug it in order to be able to open it manually.
Okay.
There's this linear rail, and inside, it's gonna be dark. Inside is this thing called a wind slider, which is basically the thing that I purchased that has a motor with a gear on it. And if you try to open it and like force the motor to turn, then it will activate itself and force the door back. And it's really noisy. Like everyone will know that someone is trying to get into my room and it will not let you in. So it's pretty secure. I like it.
Wait, but if the 5-year-old shouts computer door, will it know that it wasn't you that said it?
Crap. You actually just opened my door.
That's hilarious. That's a major security flaw right there.
It is. He doesn't know that one yet.
Nice work, Shira the hacker.
Yeah, so we're inside right now, inside my room, and I think that if we were outside, it wouldn't catch it. But I'm also planning to set up some scheduled windows where that command is not possible. So what's happening on the back end is the widget talks to if this then that, which then talks to a Raspberry Pi in my closet, which then talks to a relay, which talks to the slider. And that's how it does the status as well. And the reason for that is because Alexa works really well with if this then that. So if I've in the past I've made my own Alexa skills, but the problem with them is you have to invoke them in really weird ways. And unless you've published your skill, you can't do what are they called? Routines. So routines are great because they allow you to just say 1 or 2 words, like Alexa door. But if I had made my own skill, it would be something like Alexa tell Concord to open the door, where Concord is the name of my Raspberry Pi. So it's like, it's a lot more complicated, but with using if this then that, which is a published skill, then I can really easily set up a routine with only a couple words. So that's my Star Trek bedroom. I do have plans in the future to make the bed a Murphy bed, and then when it goes up, there will be some art inside that lights up, and it'll have underlighting and it'll look like Star Trek like bulkheads with like the rounded rectangle cutouts and stuff.
What about the tea? The machine that makes Earl Grey hot?
Oh, a replicator? I have a microwave upstairs. Or
like even an electric kettle, but there should totally be some kind of food-based preparation station.
That is a good idea, yeah.
So how much of a pain in the ass was dealing with the city getting a bedroom approved? Because I'm guessing the egress windows, because it had to be all permitted, right?
Yes, so I put in the egress window because I wanted the possibility of making this a bedroom in the future, but I also didn't want to end up with the increased property taxes. So we have not actually applied for the variance to make this a bedroom.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was getting at. I know that the city process is a pain in the ass to do that, so that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, but when I was talking to the inspector, it turns out I'm only 1% short of the sunlight limit. So there's a requirement in basements, or for all bedrooms, that there's a ratio of window area to floor area. And you have to have that ratio or better in order to be allowed to be considered a bedroom. And in basements, it's really hard to do that because there's so little area above the surface level that you can't get very big windows. And this is a big room. It's like 24 feet by 11 feet-ish. So getting the windows big enough was practically impossible, even with the egress window. So basically, I didn't apply for the variance, but if I did apply, the inspector said that because of how bright all of these lights are, and the fact that I'm only 1% away, it would probably be approved without any problems. But I'm going to wait until we are planning to sell the house before doing that, and then we can increase the property value.
Anybody else got any other questions for Bob?
So this video will be put to YouTube, just so you know your password. You may want to change it. I don't know how clever your 5-year-old is, but your voice sample now, is also available.
Yeah, it will be easy to change the password. There's a reason that I made it so simple for now.
Bob, I don't know if I'm doing something different on my Alexa app, but I was able to name routines whatever I wanted. So I can say shortened phrases, and I can even have them, oh, that's not moving. And I can have them trigger other scenes too. So I don't know, maybe that's something that they added more recently, but if that's something you need, you might want to revisit.
No, the problem is when you're making your own skill.
Yeah.
So like the developer thing. Yeah, unless you are an Amazon developer for Alexa and making your own skills that then get published on the Alexa app store, that's where this problem comes in.
Okay.
Cool. Did everybody get the joke on the red shirt? Which Bob is conveniently wearing a red shirt.
Thanks for pointing it out, Chris.
That was not coordinated, apparently. Happenstance.
Yeah.
All right. Kate, you want to take it away?
All righty. Jeremy, if you need to defend yourself, now is the time.
Oh.
All right.
Get a knife, Jeremy.
Okay, can you guys see my screen? Does that work? Okay, thumbs up. Good.
Yes.
Thank you. I think my favorite part about the presentation so far is whenever Shira asks a question, when you have it on speaker view, it's just the little blinky lights that come up as if they're asking a question.
It's kind of like this. It's kind of like in 2001 where they talk to Hal, and it just shows that like black circle.
Yeah. Okay, so this is one of the many times that Chris has like talked me into ruining something in my house, but then very kindly helped me put it back together again. So a couple weeks ago, I was working on the computer and I suddenly noticed like, God, I'm just extra irritable, like, and I look over, my pet rabbits had melted. It was way too hot in here. The air conditioning was not working. Air conditioning was busted. I go down to the basement and it's got this little blinky code on here and it's blinking out this message telling me that I've got no blower motor. So this means we can't blow air in the house. It means not that we need heating now, but we have no heating. We have no air conditioning. So like a normal person, I called an HVAC professional and he comes, this guy, he starts trying to tell us about how we need a new furnace before he's even in our basement. He tells us this is gonna be $11,000 to $14,000. He also, strangely for a furnace guy in your basement, starts giving Jeremy and I cybersecurity advice, which really just further invalidated everything he was saying. He's telling us this furnace, every single part of it's falling apart. It's falling up. This is falling apart. That's falling apart. It was pretty extreme. So he really says we need a new furnace, the whole thing, new furnace, new AC unit outside. But if we were dumb enough to want to only replace the blower motor, which would be a waste of our money since the whole thing's terribly falling apart, he wants $1,300 for that. So if this guy was so terrible, like we weren't going to go with him no matter what. So like as soon as he left, Jeremy and I start taking this thing apart much more. If that guy had been normal, we might have just gone with him, you know, but no, he was so over the top. So this is when we were still like enthusiastic that we'd be able to fix this ourselves really easily. So this is at least what our blower motor looks like inside of the fan. So here's the motor module, and this is the fan itself, which is apparently called a squirrel cage. I'm not sure if I approve of that terminology, but that's what it is. So we start scouring the internet. We're watching all the YouTube videos. You know, Chris is of course like, yeah, you can do this yourself. Just watch all these YouTube stuff. So, and we found some like very helpful videos on YouTube with very similar furnaces to us. You know, so I've watched this video like 500 times. We got the multimeter out, you know, we're looking at these connections on the circuit board, trying to test if it's the actual motor or motor module that's broken, or is it that it's not getting the right signals from the board. So I'm trying all these tests. So I've tried delivering the voltage to the fan directly as a test, or to the motor directly, to see if the motor's okay or if it's something with the circuit board. So I'm doing all this and kind of made a real stupid mistake, and here's a little fizz pop from the circuit board. I start texting Chris frantically. Chris is like, what were you doing? And he talks me down. Calls me down, tells me this is an automotive fuse. I can go buy a new one in just a few minutes, which I did. I did have to go to 2 stores, but $1 later, I had replaced my fuse, and I figured out the like really stupid move in my tests that I did that caused this. Yeah, the whole thing was, it did blink out, you fool, at me. So I could not get my blower motor to turn on by applying the voltage directly. So we go on eBay, place an order. Hang on, my husband is now talking on the phone behind me. Jeremy, yeah. Can you talk on the phone somewhere else?
No.
Okay, he says no.
Hold on.
This is my life. Okay, so place an order for a used blower motor on eBay. Of course, it takes a while to get here. So in the meanwhile, Jeremy, even though I didn't tell him about blowing that fuse on the circuit board, I did not tell him about that till much later. He still had lost all confidence in my ability to fix the furnace myself. So we have a second HVAC professional come in. This guy was not nearly as much of a charlatan. I think he was an honest guy. He did say one thing that I think was just totally wrong though. On the inside of the motor module, there's like this epoxy or resin that's just part of the manufacturing, and it has swirls on the top, which he tried to tell us was because it was busted, because there had been smoke in there. But I'm pretty sure that's just how it's manufactured. Anyway, he wanted to replace the motor module. He was gonna have to replace the motor module and the motor because he couldn't find just the module in stock. He was gonna do that for $900 for us. But by this time, I already had that eBay order on the way that included a motor module. So I was like, $900, like pretty sure I can put that in myself. So I told him, no, thank you, we'll do it ourselves. So this first motor arrives. No, it didn't make it work. I tried to test it. It's hard because I don't have a positive control. So I don't know if I'm messing up or if it's a bad motor. Meanwhile, it's heating up. It was getting really hot by the, a week had gone by. It's getting hot. The bunnies are melting. Bad situation. It gets so hot or humid in the house, 2 of our smoke alarms start going off. So we had to take down all the smoke alarms in our house. Jeremy finally goes to the hardware store and gets this window unit air conditioner that we put in the bedroom. Wow, it was so nice. It was so nice. We'd been living in such hot weather, very irritable with each other. We finally had some cool air. So this was about $350, but it's probably the best thing I've ever purchased. It was great. We tried to segment off the house so that we could cool as much of the house as possible. The bunnies, we put table and chairs in our bedroom. We basically moved everything in our house in the bedroom. We don't need the rest of the house anymore. This is all we need. The bunnies were so hot. They're not in this photo, but the bunnies wound up mostly moving into our bedroom. We put blankets down for them. So we were all like refugees clustered in the bedroom, getting the air conditioning. We gotta fix this though, right? It's a little ridiculous, like eating dinner, trying to make dinner in the bedroom. So it's back to the drawing board down in the basement. I find this troubleshooting guide in the manual. There's all sorts of typos in it, like referring to pins that don't exist. When you've got a 4-pin plug and they're referring to the 7th pin on it. But I tried to get at what they were trying to say. This was tricky. They were getting at the rate that voltage fluctuates as an indicator of whether the circuit board is still good or not. So it was not as straightforward. It was a little deeper into the weeds for me, trying to look at the rate of fluctuation, not the voltage, but how much it fluctuates by. And that told me that the circuit board was the problem. So I ordered a circuit board. So at this point, Chris was like, what is wrong with you? Drop off these motors at Sector. You've gone off the deep end. So I did. And in typical Chris style, it took him like 5 seconds to at least clearly identify one very serious problem with our original motor. And I just can't believe I didn't see this. It's like straight up burn. There's this burn spot, and Chris saw it immediately. I didn't see it. And I hadn't bothered to do a resistance test on the motor, because since I was having to buy the motors and modules as units, I thought I just need to test the whole kit and caboodle. Why test just the motor? That was dumb. I should have done it. It took Chris just a few minutes, and it was really informative to prove that who knows what else was broken, but for sure broken was the motor itself in our original furnace motor. So that was a helpful fact. So we ordered another blower motor with the thought that the first one we got on eBay was maybe also busted. You kind of assume that the one that you just bought is working, so then you think it's the circuit board. Anyway, we ordered a second one, and it worked. It worked. Indeed, the first motor we ordered off eBay was also bad. It was as simple as that in the end. All that ridiculous testing, rates of voltage fluctuation, that was all stupid. None of that was necessary. The air conditioning works. It's like the greatest thing in the world to have air conditioning. We forgot how great it was. So we were out of air conditioning for like 2.5 weeks. So in the end, tabulating all of this, we got up to $830, whereas that one guy quoted us $900 to fix it. So we already for sure saved $70 and 2.5 weeks of living in the heat. But also, I've been promised that the guy on eBay is going to refund me for the first motor. It hasn't actually happened yet, but he promises he will. So that'll get us down to $710, which is a saving over $900. And also that window unit, I feel like could be handy for unknown reasons in the future. You know, you never know. You never know. So as happens almost all the time, that my sector membership just pays for itself. It really does. It just pays for itself. So I am very thankful. And I feel like I learned a lot. And the next time my furnace breaks, I'm going to have a lot of ideas about what to do the next time.
You're going to have a spare control board, so it's all good.
That's true. So, yeah. So thank you, Chris.
Nice job and great story. I can really sympathize with that because 2 years ago, our air conditioner broke and had to be replaced, and it took them 2 weeks to do it. So we bought the dinkiest, smallest, tiniest little window unit that we could throw in the window. It was like $120 and kind of just lived in the bedroom too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was thankful. We were thankful to have it though, for sure.
I have briefly thought in the past about providing air conditioners and heaters as a service, whereby, because I've had multiple people now in the past who have bugged me about, like, our heater died, it's the middle of winter, we don't want to call on a Sunday or a Saturday. Do you have any just big ass electric heaters I can borrow so I can heat my house temporarily until I can get the furnace fixed next week? And we have made good on that in the past. I do have 3 air conditioners here, little ones.
Oh.
Well, one little one and one gigantic one. So sounds like Dennis has got one too, and Kate does.
I was about to volunteer the one out of our window. Do you want it?
Then I'll have 4. I would sell that sucker. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's kind of an interesting thing because you're willing to spend so much money to fix the thing in a timely way, when in reality, like, you can stay over the time based on having a portable air conditioner or a heater or whatever it is to kind of make things better, depending on the circumstance. So
yeah, especially with AC, like I could see that in the winter, it could be a lot more desperate situation with pipes and stuff, you know?
Back when we lived in Madison, our heating stopped working for a while, and it was like a father-son van outfit came to fix the thing, and the kid was like 17, and he's trying to fix this, and he's replacing every part. And so Scott was home, and he decided to kind of help him with his diagnostic. Scott knows nothing about furnaces at all, or any of the things that are in the basement. He had no clue. But by the end of this session, the kid was like, offered Scott a job. Was like, listen, you're really good at this. It was so funny.
Yeah, we had a little, we had an air conditioner adventure over a Memorial Day weekend. I think it was on Saturday. We realized that there was water running all over the floor from the air conditioner condensation. And I called the company that installed it. It was only a couple of years ago. And they said, well, it's going to cost you double or triple to come out on a holiday. So I said, well, what can you tell me about troubleshooting this? It was just the stupidest, simplest thing. I took, there's a hose that collects the condensate from the heat exchanger and runs it into a little pump that pumps it over to the sink. And I realized that it was going all over the carpet. It wasn't going into the sink. He ended up just telling me over the phone, pull the hose over there, stick a piece of wire in there. Cobweb or something got over that outlet and blocked it, so the water can't come out. About a quart of water came out all at once, whatever was in the reservoir there, and it was working fine. And that's something I'm going to do every year now as a regular maintenance thing.
Nice. Yeah.
Chris, to your list, besides air conditioners and heaters, you should have freezers and refrigerators that you can motor over to somebody's house too.
What about computers?
Those are tough times this time. This pandemic time of lifetime here. It's hard to get a freezer right now.
It is so hard. We wanted one, and every single store was sold out of freezers. Like, I think we looked everywhere. And then Jeremy found one on Craigslist just moments after it was posted, and we were like, we're on our way. We're on our way to get it. And so by the time we got there, the guy selling the freezer said, do you even know how many calls I got after you called me? Like, everybody wanted this freezer, but we got it.
Yeah, we had at my mom's house in Monroe, we had a freezer that she would use before she moved out. And the power had gone out, all this stuff spoiled, melted, molded. So I just dumped it out, cleaned it, and then left it sitting outside, tipped on its side so nothing would get trapped inside of it for months, most of the winter. And then I finally moved it back into the garage. So this thing is dirty. When I tipped it right side up, mice were climbing into it and not able to get back out. And then the neighbor called and said, hey, you know, we need a freezer. Do you guys happen to have one? You know, did your mom have one when she moved out? I said, well, yes, as a matter of fact. You sure you want this? How bad do you want this? And so I cleaned it out. They took it. They were so grateful. We didn't ask them for anything because I felt bad about not telling them what sort of wildlife had been in there.
But this semester, Chris, you could start up a business with laptops and webcams. You know, students are going to panic when everything stops working and they have to do their homework. You could deliver it to their door. I know you have a collection of parts over there.
I disagree. I think you go to the source. You charge the professors, not the students. They're the ones who are really going to have a problem. The students got their phone, their old phone, their laptop, their old laptop. There's lots of options. But the professors, they're screwed and they got money. Come on now.
No, at this point, it's really obvious who's a gamer because any of these meetings, like the audio comes in crystal clear. It's great. And then everybody else who doesn't play games, I can't understand what they're saying.
Actually, I'm going into such deep withdrawal from having shop space to work in at the Sector. You should just deliver that shop trailer to people's address and charge them by the month for it. And
live stream.
A little extra for each tool that you need to rent those.
Chris, you should do a live stream. Give us just like the experience, meditative, like just lathe something, you know what I mean? And then we can watch and get the experience, the sounds of the shop.
Oh yeah, could you do a recording of like Casey and Jim arguing in the background?
Oh, I would be happy to do that. That is truly the sound of the shop though, is Jim screaming at Todd, the two of them going back and forth. Not for like 10 minutes, but for hours. We gotta have a long recording too.
10 hours and then repeat it.
Hey, I was in for my physical. My doctor's like, your blood pressure is so low. What's going on?
My vote is still for the rented trailer. I can do without the rest.
We could have loudspeakers in there just cranking the screaming. That could be good. Just bumping it. I'll have to upgrade the stereo though before we move it anywhere.
Is Jim on? I love Jim. Jim, I love you and I miss you. I love you.
Jim's here. So Jim is grappling with Zoom. This is Jim's first time on Zoom on his laptop. It's been entertaining.
All right, cool.
We did a little Zoom trainer beforehand. Oh my God, he's unmuted himself.
Uh-oh, here it comes. I don't want to
keep picking on me and I won't do my presentation, Chris.
Oh, the beard's gone. Look at this. I like it. Looking good, Jim. Looking good.
All about the COVID mask fit.
That's right. That's right. I just don't go anywhere. That's why I don't have to shave. It's fine.
I miss all of you so much, but I feel less like isolated because we're all stuck at home. Yeah, like I'm not missing out as much, you know, being remote to Sector.
All right. Nick, did you want to talk for a bit?
Yeah, I just want to say quick, it's nice having another place that I can go work at my mom's house. She does have a big garage and shop, but my tools are all here. The ones that I have, and I don't have the ones that are at Sector. So, yeah, can I share the screen?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, let me see. Now, you know, well, I don't know how to do this. So, yeah, Chris titled my talk, Melting Plastic for Outdoor Recreation. It's actually, I need to clarify that, as you would with any bogus title. I'm actually fusing plastic. I'm not quite bringing it to the melting point. I'm just getting it soft enough so it'll stick to itself. And this works really well. I can't believe I haven't seen this before, but so coroplast is a fluted plastic material. I meant to have a sample of it here. Most of you have probably seen it on real estate signs or campaign signs. And it's extremely handy, extremely easy to work with. The color is molded in. So for anything where you're going to, where you might have abrasion, like falling over and crashing, it's really good because it doesn't show scratches so much. For about 20 or 25 years, people have been making recumbent bodies out of coroplast for bikes and trikes. And I had made a couple of simple little things that I zip tied together, but this heat bonding was a real revelation. There's also this guy, Paul Elkins, who lives a couple hours north of Seattle, who does a lot of really weird, wacky stuff. The top picture there is a bike trailer camper. The second one is a kayak that he made out of a single folded sheet of coroplast, and the bottom one is a car top. If you go to his website, which I've got in links at the end of this document, you can see all the stuff he does. I called him up one day. He's very approachable. He answers his phone from strange calls. And he said he was coming down to Seattle to pick up some coroplast. And I told him I had found a place that had it cheaper than what he had been going to. So, by the way, could you pick up a couple extra sheets for me and drop them off on your way home? And he said yes. So got to meet him and talk to him a little bit. He's not doing much in the way of bike projects anymore because with old age, his knees have given out and he can't ride, but does a lot of other neat stuff. So I had been messing around over the last couple of months, printing designs for a complete velomobile shell on my computer, and then cutting it out and assembling it in paper just to get an idea. You know, this is my this is my home version of 3D printing when I don't have Sector67. And I have this Tour Easy long wheelbase recumbent that I just did a long tour on, and thought, you know, instead of strapping on panniers, and it would have been nice to have a box that mounted right to the bike that I could carry all my stuff in. And so I decided to make that out of coroplast. Like with anything, I decided to start with a simple project. Coroplast, let me see where they put that. Coroplast is available in a lot of different sizes. The biggest is 4x8 foot sheets. The biggest that's commonly available is 4x8 foot sheets, which you can buy in white only at Home Depot for about $37 a sheet. If you go to a sign place, you can get it closer to wholesale price, which is anywhere from $18 to $30, depending on whether it's plain or colors. And so I was really pleased to find out when I did a little calling around that the sign shop in Monroe could get any size of coroplast. They make this stuff up to 5x12 foot sheets, and he could get it delivered to his door, which was only a mile from my door, at no extra charge. So I ordered 4 sheets. Might have gotten a little carried away there because I used half a sheet for this project, but I plan on doing more. And one place in town I had a full sheet of white for $37, so I bought that just so I'd have something to experiment with. Didn't end up doing that. The sign place also had 18x24 foot sheets, which is their standard sign size, and so I bought 3 of those for $3 a piece just to experiment with. And so the first experiment I did was my girlfriend suggested, well, you know, I could use a sleeve for my computer. It turned out that the 18x24 inch piece was just the right size for doing that. And I didn't have to make a pattern. I just laid the computer down on the piece, sketched around it. I was experimenting with, so the heat bonding, I'd done experiments on a couple little sample pieces here in the basement. Chris had loaned me this, I trusted his loan. I've had it for about 6 months now. I think he wants it back. He gave me this heat gun, and so I was playing with it, and it takes quite a bit of practice to get good looking bonds. What I learned from making this little computer sleeve was make a layout anyway, even if you don't think you need it, because it's another way you can check your measurements. When I made this, I cut off some of the length. If I had thought it through ahead of time, I would have had enough length to make a flap that folds over the top for a closure. As it was too short on this one. You know, $3 of coroplast down the drain. and a lesson learned. The other lessons I learned was to, until you get really good at the heat bonds, hide them on the inside of your project. And fortunately, this the tailbox project allowed me to do that. For something more complicated, when you do a computer layout and you need to follow it exactly, have your assign place print your layout full size on paper. They don't usually have a printer big enough to print it directly on your coroplast, and that probably costs a lot more anyway. Have them printed on paper, then you can just attach it to your coroplast and use it for cutting pattern. So even though I had laid this out on the computer before, because I was at my mom's, I didn't have a printer. So I just mocked it up in cardboard and got the general dimensions of the box itself all right. I taped the thing together, put it on the bike, made sure it was a fit and made sure it didn't interfere with anything. And then I used that cardboard as a pattern to cut out my coroplast. Here's my little coroplast angel. In lieu of having a printed pattern, I had to find something to make this curve. I wanted this curve. I'm an aerodynamicist. I would have loved to figure out the pressure recovery on that and make it laminar flow and all. But without being able to lay it out on the computer, I just looked around the garage. There was a plastic toboggan that had this curve on it, and that's how I made the pattern. As it turns out, I don't think that was really necessary. I think a straight line would have been fine. And in fact, I only have the curve on the bottom. The top is straight lines because I didn't want to have to deal with sectioning these fold over flaps on the top. So so one really important thing too, a reason it was good that I did the cardboard model first, you want to be strategic about how you assemble this. You're going to have to stick the heat gun inside of these areas and get underneath to heat it up, to fuse it. And so you don't want to end up with something that you can't get the heat gun under. I had the additional restriction that I was working on this alone. I didn't have an extra pair of hands to hold things. I didn't have any clamps. My things I didn't get all my fit and alignment perfect. But so the order that I did this, I fused the wings, the angel's wings there. I fused those onto the center body first. Then I folded it forward and did these notched flaps along the bottom. Then I did the tail flaps onto the tail of the box. And this is to show you that I used less than half a sheet of the coroplast to make this. And here's how the box looks before I put it on the bike. Before I mounted this box on the bike, I put a 10 millimeter thick platform shelf on top of the rack to provide the structural support for it, because the floor of this is only 4 millimeter coroplast, wasn't going to be sturdy enough. So now the box is bolted to that platform and makes it real solid. So I put this together with no fasteners. The only fasteners on this whole project are the 2 bolts that are holding the shelf and the box down to the rack. And on the sides, I got some Velcro-like. I was at the hardware store to get the bolts, and so I got these Velcro-like fasteners. I put them on the sides, so you press those in on the sides to hold it closed. That's because the top ended up being a little bit long. You can see that it's got some overbite. Attaching it on the sides gave me something to push against to force those fasteners together. So the cost of this project, I think this sheet of blue was about $25, used half of it. $7 for the Velcro fasteners and the 2 metric bolts to hold it to the rack. And then the other thing I did, Chris laughed at me when I walked in with this, but yes, it's from the 80s. But when I made the folds in the coroplast, I used this soldering gun to melt away one side of the coroplast so that just the other side was still there. It would bend easily, but it was sturdy enough to still hold it together. What you normally do, if you're going parallel to the flutes in the coroplast, you can just use a screen tool to crease it, and that'll allow it to bend 45 degrees. But if you're bending across the flutes, this wasn't enough. And maybe that I wasn't pressing hard enough, but by using a straight edge, pulling this along it, so I just melted one side of the coroplast, I was able to get a really nice 90-degree bend. I had to go at it twice, make 2 passes with this to get a wide enough bend for 90 degrees. Going through once would only give you enough for a 45-degree bend. I didn't look at the MSDS sheet on coroplast before I started burning it and sniffing the fumes. If anybody has that or knows how much stupider I've made myself by breathing that stuff, please don't hesitate to put something in the chat box.
Does it smell sweet or acrid?
I would say acrid.
All right, then it's probably PVC, so that's not great for you.
Polypropylene.
Otherwise, it's HDPE if it's sweet smelling.
Oh, okay. It's polypropylene, which is that.
Yeah. Either way, then.
Okay.
The chlorine is probably worse for burning your nose than anything else, but yeah, I mean, in general, don't huff plastic. That's a good thing to live by.
Yeah. I did. I was working out in the garage. I opened the big door. I opened the back door, so there was some flow through there. But there were still times when the stuff, I was down close to it, and the stuff was going right up in my face. So next time I'll have a box fan going. And then I've got some links here to Paul Elkin's project site. There's an instructable for building a coroplast shelf for overcoming trike, and then this DIY USA is the place where I got the idea for heat bonding with the heat gun. If anybody else has experience working with coroplast, please let me know. I'm new with this. I do not know any professionals. If there are better tools for this, somebody should make something like this soldering gun that has an adjustment for depth and for temperature. That would make this job a lot easier and safer, and maybe a little fan to blow the fumes away. Or maybe that's a business opportunity.
What were you using to actually cut it out? The parts where you were doing a complete cut through?
Just a razor knife.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, the 4mm stuff is really easy to cut. The 10mm stuff, I had to go across the road. There's a retired guy who lives across the road from my mom who was a tool and die maker and has a pretty complete shop set up. So he let me use his 40-year-old Sears Craftsman table saw to cut the 10mm stuff. It is heavy. We got the general curved outline with the table saw, and then we just went, I had to cut a notch out of it for a bend in the rack where it sticks up. We just did that with the utility knife, but that it took longer to make this little cut with the utility knife than it did to do the whole long cuts with the table saw. Good question.
Nick, it seems like for curved surfaces, if you aligned the flutes right, that you've got one dimension that curves pretty easily. Is that right? So for making a fairing, you can align your pattern just right?
You'd like to think so. Not really. If you bend it 90 degrees to the flutes, it will crease. And so it's usually preferable to bend, let's see. Now, if you bend parallel to the flutes, it'll crease. It's preferable to bend it 90 degrees to the flutes. And one trick that a friend of mine built a fairing for a bike that he built for me about around 1996, 25 years ago already. The trick he used was you can do cylindrical bends, flat bends. He laid the big coroplast sheet over a sheet of metal or something that he had that had the final shape that he wanted. And then he stuck a big bath towel in a pot of boiling water, got it really good and hot, and then threw it on top of the coroplast, and that softened it enough so that it would sag and drape itself over the form.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, these facet bends are really easy to do without anything fancy like that. But you can't really do compound bends in coroplast, but you can do some pretty nice cylindrical or conical bends by using tricks like that. And so my future project is going to be to do a full streamlined bike shell on one of my other bikes. And but right now I'm still planning to just do facet bends, just straight line creases. Yeah, and this coroplast is great for making lots of different things. Like you saw, Paul made a car top luggage rack. He's made all kinds of shelters and vehicles out of the coroplast. He made a backpack out of it. One of my ideas for my streamliner is to make a nose cone out of this coroplast that's detachable from the bike and has backpack straps on it. So you take the nose cone off, you throw it on your back. That makes the vehicle a little less stealable too, because it has a lot more drag without a paired nose.
All right.
Maybe I'm the only one that appreciates that. I'm not sure if it's but
cool. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
I think we got Jim and then Shira. Yeah. So Nick, you want to kill your? There you go.
It's dead.
Yeah, you got to unmute yourself, Jim.
Muting.
Oh, there we go.
All right. Can everyone hear me? No? We're good? Cool. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about an adventure I had actually just yesterday and this morning. So I don't have nearly as good a presentation put together as the previous folks, but please struggle along with me as I attempt my first Zoom presentation. So I was working in the yard, as we all are on these days, and pruning the last of the raspberry bushes and watching a squirrel playing on the roof of the house. And then I went around to the front to catch a couple more of the old canes. Came back no more than 10 minutes later and found a dead squirrel laying right next to the door of the house. So I knew he wasn't there when I was there 10 minutes earlier, so clearly he had just died, stone cold dead, laying around the ground. Curious why this squirrel who had just been playing on the roof of my house is now laying dead. And let's start the presentation here if I can, folks. I'm going to try to switch my screen. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't, then we'll know shortly. Nope, picked the wrong one. Hold on. We got to pick the correct window, and of course I have way too many going. Let's see if that goes. No, it's not doing the full screen for some reason. Hold on.
Yeah, you gotta put it back to the full screen after you share it.
Oh, here we are. No, I was just picking the wrong one. It's a crappy thing. So first I eliminated the obvious cause of death, the cat. She has been known to bring in a few small mammals, nothing as large as a squirrel. But she's too fat, she's too slow, and she was inside sleeping at the time I went and verified that. So the cat did not kill the squirrel. So then we're on to the next possibility, which is gonna probably have to do a squirrel autopsy to figure out what killed this squirrel. Now, I have actually had some history of this. I did prepare a squirrel for advanced biology class in high school. So this was also an opportunity to redeem myself from that rather horrific experience as a inexperienced mammal processor. So brief history on of that. Advanced biology class, we probably all had it in high school. We did a fair amount of dissection. We dissected a frog, a cat, worm. Anyways, towards the end of the school year, we also got to draw from a hat to pick one of the species groups to capture, prepare, and present to the class. And we drew from a hat, so some people got something like a fungus, and all they had to do was bring in a mushroom. Some people would get a vegetable. Or, anyways, I drew mammal, so I actually had to get a mammal and prepare it. And the only one I could catch living in the town was a squirrel. So had that history. It didn't go well. It was a horrible preparation. And here's a chance to redeem myself. So let's start into the squirrel autopsy. First things first, what are the risks of chopping up a squirrel in your backyard?
Wait, Jim, I got to stop you here. Is there a trigger warning you need to give me? Because you're on a 100-inch screen here. There better not be giant squirrel dissection going on.
Well, I do want to offer that up, and I will. And before we go to that, I will do the warning. So if some folks want to see the autopsy photos, they're in the presentation. If folks don't want it, like they're eating their dinner or they have their children present.
I did mention I was in the Culver's drive-through, right?
So it will be optional. I definitely do not have to go to those photos. I could also share them later if folks want to see them. But they're not a mandatory thing to appreciate the outcome. First question was, do squirrels carry COVID, which is the worry these days for everything? And the answer is I don't know. But bats do. So how are squirrels like bats? They're both small mammals. They live in social groups. They like to invade your attic. So it's not looking good. They also try to fly like bats sometimes. So they also don't practice good social distancing. They don't wear masks. They're not good about that. And in the end, I did a quick search, and there is no research presently available on the internet that says whether squirrels carry COVID. So better safe than sorry, and I did have an isolation chamber, so we stayed nice and safe with this dissection. And here's the graphic warning. So do folks want to see, or do you want to just skip ahead to the conclusion of the
I think you're missing Shira's vote in chat, which is that definitely, I think that was Shira's opinion.
We can vote with raised hands if you want to.
They're not terribly horrid. I'll describe them briefly, and if folks want to briefly darken their screen or avert their eyes, they don't have to watch. So basically what I was doing ultimately is just removing the squirrel's fur and skin. I removed it in one single operation. When I took the high school class and prepared my squirrel for mounting, there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't an internet available, and there was no good ready reference for how to do that. So I just did a whole total butcher job back in high school. Now, of course, you can pull up multiple YouTube videos and whole channels on taxidermy and preparing small mammals or large mammals. They go into great detail. So I watched a video, and it truly makes all the difference in the world. As we all know, just about anything you want to go into, there's a video for it, and it makes it way easier to do it. So it was actually a breeze to do it, knowing now what the little tricks of the trade are. So having said that, the next pictures will be of a squirrel minus its fur, and then we can discuss the conclusions of the autopsy. Because once I removed his skin, and mind you, when I looked at the squirrel, there was no visible trauma apparent, right? There wasn't anything obvious. He hadn't been shot off the roof or something, or picked up by a crow and dropped. So there was no obvious external signs. But once I removed the fur, it became very apparent what had happened to this squirrel. And namely, what happened was he had a massive trauma to the back of his head, neck, and left forearm. So it was really apparent from looking at the relative. Basically, he had a ton of blood underneath the layer of membrane. Basically, all his muscles have been traumatized, and it looks like he suffered a fall and struck the back of his head on the concrete step. And I'm guessing he died almost instantly at that point. So that was a conclusion of the autopsy. And now on to, is there any solution? So this is the second squirrel actually I found dead in my backyard over the years. So is it something that maybe signage could help with? Probably not. Another possibility, we put a fence along the roof. It's a fairly steep roof, but that might have issues with the city. I don't know if they would agree with that. So if you guys have any ideas on how to prevent juvenile squirrels from dying tragically, leaping from a walnut tree onto the roof of my house, I'd be more than happy to entertain them. And that's all I got for my presentation.
Isn't it remarkably rare for a squirrel to have that problem, right? Don't they have pretty advanced fall systems?
You know, I've watched them for a lot of years in my backyard, and they're amazing with their ability to leap from branches. That I'm like, how's that branch even hold that squirrel, let alone give him a launch pad to launch himself like 15 feet onto the roof of my house? So I'm always stunned at their ability. I've also watched mother squirrels leading their baby squirrels around, and then I realized, well, they do got to learn it somehow, and clearly at some point, you know, they get adventuresome and make mistakes, and I guess it makes sense that on occasion those mistakes are fatal.
Yeah, definitely use nets like they do in Foxconn.
Bob, your mic's a little quiet, but his
Sorry,
suggestion
Bob,
was
I barely heard you there.
Foxconn nets, like the Foxconn manufacturing plant.
Well, it was one possibility I didn't consider was suicide. I guess, or potentially he could have been shoved. I didn't see any other squirrels in the area, so I kind of didn't consider, you know, homicide. But suicide, I guess, could be a possibility. And it is, I guess, at a slightly higher rate now with social isolation.
Was the first squirrel at the same spot?
The first squirrel was probably 5 or 6 feet, so it was, I suspect, the same leap, same screw up, and a similar mode of death. Yeah. So I didn't do an autopsy on that one, so again, I couldn't go into the details.
Jim, you do realize, knowing Kate's history, you're going to have like an entire squirrel anti-fall kit. They're all going to be running around with harnesses in your backyard. You can have tie-ups and bungees and all sorts of stuff from now on.
Will those squirrels have to sign a waiver?
Jeremy just suggested that Jim and I should collaborate on parachutes for squirrels.
Yeah, Jim, I'm surprised you didn't suggest that right away.
You know, you could do a base rig for them, or maybe some kind of a tethered system to deploy them. I actually have a very small parachute system I built for a flying monkey, but I'm not sure if the squirrels would. I don't know if if the squirrel's not going to be responsible in leaping around. I don't know if he's going to be responsible about putting a parachute on correctly. So it might not be. It might be a nice solution if you could train the squirrels to use it properly and get them to use it, and it'd be hilarious video.
I think you should be just like all the businesses around town and just do the signage, and that way you've deferred all responsibility.
Would definitely be beware of falling squirrels?
So the end goal for was mostly just, since it was a benign kill, so making good use of him, is to now that I have the skin, is to do an attempt at a taxidermy mount, and maybe we'll have a more detailed and better prepared presentation next month. So currently it's coated with borax and in the freezer, and there's a lot of good videos on preparing the skins. It looks fairly simple, and then we'll make an attempt at stuffing him and see how that turns out. If nothing else, it'll be a horrific.
Jim's comment yesterday is apparently there are a plethora of kits on eBay of mixed mount taxidermy systems, like the jackalopes and all sorts of stuff, which is apparently a thing. So I think Jim has forever poisoned his YouTube cache and his eBay advertising and marketing cache forever. This will be entertaining for years to come.
You have to choose a really cool pose for the taxidermy.
Yes, and there's a huge now. If you weigh down that rabbit hole, I guess it'd be a squirrel hole. So typically, what they'll do is you get I'm guessing it's a foam injection molded foam mannequin that you stretch your squirrel hide over. Is typically how it's done. I'm not going to go that route. That seems like too much money. But that's what the kits typically have. So you'll have an injection molded squirrel body that you stretch the skin over and pose it into. And then you're limited then to what poses are available for sale. If you go on there's only a couple sites. You can see it's like $30 or $40 for a posable mannequin for just about anything you want to kill and mount on your wall.
Anybody got any other questions for Mr. Jim here, who's clearly getting bored in the midst of the pandemic?
My strategy actually is going to be slightly different. I'm hoping I took a lot more pictures than I put up, so if people want more, they can see them. And I got shots from all different angles on a black surface. My hope is, I think there's an app you can use to generate a 3D model from pictures. So, and this is a small squirrel, so I think what I can do, maybe it's too ambitious, is get a 3D model from the multiple pictures I've taken, or get some more pictures of it, and then 3D print the mold for it. And if I can do that, then the next question is, can I put it in Blender and pose him? That's probably more ambitious than I want to actually get to. But, well, we are in the middle of a COVID crisis, so I've got a little more time on my hands. If anybody knows where you can get a CAD model of a posable squirrel body, that I think would be the cat's meow in terms of a 3D printed, because then you could actually, you could have him playing drums or guitar or just about anything.
I don't have a squirrel, but I did find a really high quality model of a rat online and asked the artist for it for Blender. I'm sure you can find it.
Bob is dying over there. This is great. Oh, God. All right. So I left Shira as our closer. So, Shira, you get to close things out here.
All right. I'll close the tab Blend Swap Squirrel, but I know that Blend Swap has a squirrel model for you, Jim. So I didn't really prepare this presentation so much as I was messing around with some hardware before the semester starts. I need to figure out how I'm going to do makerspace stuff from here. Also today, fun news, I got the cost estimates for the renovation for the makerspace, so now I just need to figure out which things we don't go with, fire sprinklers, who needs them, and that's
how much were your sprinklers?
Oh, that actually, it was more like, the lighting was more expensive and the floors and stuff.
Right.
We're just gonna have to go through and make priorities. So that was exciting though, getting a real insight into how much things cost at the, when your project gets a name and it's put on an architectural PDF, it's like, the people send you from their firm. That's like that level of cost. I'm learning how that works. But yeah, okay, so what I have here is, okay, so it's a couple things. Firstly, a couple years ago, I bought Scott a microscope for lock picking or whatever else he might want to use it for. HDMI output microscope. Basically, at work, we had like some $13,000 microscope, and I was really excited about it. The quality was really great, but it was heavy, and I wanted one at home that wasn't going to cost me that much. And I actually went to go use the USB feature because I found out it has a USB camera in it, and I had to install drivers, and it took forever. Nothing worked. I finally got it plugged in. And it's the worst. Like it was an afterthought. It was such a bad design on a $13,000 microscope. You've got this like, just nobody cares camera. Like it was put in there to write it in the description. So I was taking pictures through the eyepiece because I was getting much better quality that way with my phone. So I bought Scott this USB, this like dinky like $300. It wasn't even $300. It was like $286, and that was like for the LED rig and everything else, and like the little tripod it comes with. C-type lens camera. Actually, I can show you it. It's right here. Let's see. So I've got like it mounted on a tripod now because the rig it came with isn't really that nice. But yeah, it works really, really well, and much prefer it for all kinds of applications to the expensive $13,000 one at the university. Anyway, so Scott used it like twice to pick some locks, and then it's mine. So like I buy gifts for myself. And okay, so if you want to stream something with an HDMI output, now is the time. Grab them all. They're still available. An HDMI capture card. Those will probably be popular once all the instructors realize what they need to buy for their semester. So I went to Best Buy actually for a curbside pickup because I didn't want to wait. But then of course, I wanted it for an event I had the same day, and it doesn't really matter that I went to Best Buy because I still had to spend like all these 6 hours figuring out how it worked and installing drivers and whatever. So I didn't end up using it for my event, but I still have it. And now it's streaming to Zoom. So when I first learned how to solder, I didn't really learn. I just like picked up a soldering iron at my local high school. Nobody knew how it worked, and I just like did the worst job ever. So I did the painting technique, and like I just made it up as I went. And even though YouTube was a thing, I didn't care. So I didn't like educate myself. And for years, it was just really awful quality soldering joints. And that's actually what I see in all of the students now is they nod and they go, yeah, I totally know how to solder. And they have no clue how to solder. And then I'm debugging the entire project. I'm debugging, like now over Zoom, I'm asking them questions like, wait, show me that roll of solder. That's plumbing solder. I have to like go back to basics and really ask like deeper questions and actually also work on the circuit and the code all at the same time. And it's very difficult. So I'm trying to teach everyone the right thing quickly in the beginning so we can at least isolate some variables. And I bought these SMD soldering kits. Actually, what I really need to do is write a plugin for Altium that superimposes a picture of a quarter on the screen so that the students like remember the size of the footprints that they're choosing when they do their layouts, because you know then they get their board. It's 2 weeks to deadline. There's no time to do another board, and all the parts are as small as they can be. So among the experts in the makerspace, we like to have competitions to see who can actually get these things soldered properly. But we are also assuming that the circuit board works, which it doesn't always, so we don't always get validation of whether we did it right. So I bought these kits prefab because they're kind of expensive, but I just didn't want to make a whole project out of it. And I put one together, and it's really nice. It's really, really easy, and it's got all these fun little tiny extra parts that I haven't put on yet, so I was going to try doing a couple for you. And I wanted to tell you about my other cool piece of gadgetry that I borrowed from work. You have some of these. I saw like one at Sector that was like a cheaper model, but it's like the same brand. The induction heating, the Metcal soldering irons. So if you don't know these, they're really fun. Basically, there's no point in selecting your temperature. Normally what you do is like you don't really care that you have a digital temperature controlled thermostat soldering iron. You just bump up the temperature or down based on like what you're doing and the ambient temperature of the room and other stuff. So this one doesn't even like have an option to change the temperature. You just turn it on and then it just says okay, and it's like you've got two models. You've got the tips. Basically, actually the temperature is really a property of like the geometry in the alloy or something in the tip. And basically there's two types, like regular and high temp, right? That's it. So there might be like a third type now, but you don't have to select anything, you just do. And it does just work. So I use that for all kinds of things that are much easier now, like if I have to solder a wire onto a piezo element, or anything like, really tiny or really large, it's like the best. So I'm gonna switch over here. And one of the problems is, of course, I don't wanna block the light. So I have a tendency to solder like really poorly when I'm in front of this rig because I'm not like putting my head in front of it like that. So, I'm gonna just like make excuses for myself. But yeah, you can really do anything with some practice, and unless you have like, a tremor. And so, I like to solder. If the students can't get the project working, like just do it for them, because it's like soldering, I don't know, we're not teaching them how to solder, right? Like what we really need to teach them to do is how to design stuff and how to think. And if they really can't, if they're drinking too much caffeine to be able to solder today, I'm not gonna like hold it against them. So before
for context, a single grain of rice is like as big as like 8 of those little tiny pieces she's putting on the board.
So actually, let's see if we can't, oh, I didn't think about this. The tripod needs to be somewhat inverted to get closer. I guess like, right, I can bring this rig a whole lot further down and then you can get much more magnification, or
put your finger in frame for a second.
Oh yeah.
There you go, finger, and the little tiny part that you probably forgot about is right in the corner of the board, if you guys can't see it.
Here's what I'm gonna do. I am going to lift this so that you can get a closer view. Yeah, these parts are small. I do sometimes lose them when I just breathe too hard.
I missed it. What size are they?
0403s, I think, or 0402s.
I didn't read the package.
It's printed on the top of the PCB, on the top of the row.
Oh, yeah. All right, so here, I've got this pair of tweezers. You can see I'm holding it, and then here they are in the frame. And before I actually put this over here, you see it? What I'm gonna do is move it aside. My favorite technique is just tin one pad first, because the surface tension ends up just like, if you try to do it in the wrong order, you end up with the part kind of just goes up at a right angle. Maybe I can show you that in a minute. All right, so I'm just gonna tin this pad so it's all, you know, heat then feed. Can't really see
so the problem she was talking about is called tombstoning, and so if you put your part down and you touch the part, which I think you picked up your, oh no, you didn't. Your part will stand up vertically, and then it's a real pain in the ass to sit it back down flat on the board. So that's what tends to happen with surface tension. And then I'm just gonna find that object with the tweezers, and I'm actually gonna look at my computer here because I can't really see what I'm doing from this angle. I'm basically keeping my head like as far away as I can so that I don't block the light that I set up here. And I'm actually just gonna try to use the tweezers to manipulate it into place. Once I have control of the tweezers, I'm just gonna apply a tiny bit of heat. Just move it around. But it's definitely easier if you can put your head above the rig. Maybe I'll rotate it so I can do that. Because you do need to kind of see what you're doing, which is what I found out I was doing wrong with welding, is I basically couldn't see anything. And I was like, this is so difficult. When you can't. Oh, there we go. All right. I found the object with the tweezers. I'm just gonna, there we go. Just to tack it in place. I can always kind of go back and clean it up later. More rotate it. Sometimes it'll bring it, if I just put a little pressure on the top, it'll kind of just self correct. But one of the other problems I'm having right now is that the objects that I have stacked this whole thing on are wiggly. So like the entire stack is moving up and down because it's a series of like empty salad containers that are all like very thin plastic. So invest in your setup is all I had to say. I'm gonna clean this up here. I think your part will be functional if you throw a blob on the other side. You're golden. This is as good as rework.
Straight. I like, you don't know how many times I've gone back and been like, the margins aren't aligned. Yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, we've all seen worse, including like this one time where, so it was like an IC like this, and the students were like, you know, it doesn't work. Let me show you what it looked like. Imagine there was an IC populated here. They did this. So they had put solder, I didn't do it because there's no pins I need more solder to bridge. So they did basically, every pin was attached together. I can't even get it to do it right now. And there was just a huge blob of solder going like across the entire row. And when I was brought in to help, by then a couple other people had been brought in to help too, and they were like just kind of laughing because like they were like, well, we did everything, you know, and we plugged it in and it doesn't work, and we're wondering if you could help us find out where the problem is. Every single pin on every single, like they were all attached together, like on purpose, not like accidentally, not with a little bit of bridging, like that had been the intent. So I think there what we have is a problem that is really our fault. It's our fault to, you know, we didn't educate anybody. We need to go back and think about what we were teaching them. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I just, what I really need is like a periscope or something. I need like something that gets out of the way of this lighting rig here, which you can see I'm blocking with my hand, and brings my vision to like right here. And I don't know how to do that. That's it, that's all I have.
If you, if you watch this, yeah, Bob's got the DigiKey ruler in the video there.
These things are awesome.
So the other thing I was going to say is if you watch the Mac repair guy, I forget the hell his name is, he's got a stereo microscope, and then he's got like a C-mount camera into the stereo microscope, and that's an easy way to share what you're doing, but also maintain really good visual for you, which is
and that
handy.
Was kind of what the Lynx Evo had, but unfortunately it was just really poorly designed. The drivers were also really bad, and it was just, you know, it's a lot of money. For German engineering, right? Like I expected a lot better.
The Germans do cars, they don't do microscopes. You should know this. Anybody else got anything?
So
Shira, question?
I've actually, this is very timely for me because I've been doing some work at home and the components I want are finally no longer available in like through hole. So I'm struggling with this, but like, would hot air be a tool you could use to solder this? Like, because I have like little 6-pin things, and so getting, the three pads hot enough, and then getting it on, and then getting the other 3 seems it's very awkward.
So firstly, you should know that they sell a tweezer attachment for the Met-Cal. So you can have 2 soldering irons that act like a tweezer, and then you can buy the different cartridges for it that are like exactly right for your form factor. I've not used that yet, but it does sound promising. The hot air gun has a problem, which is as the parts get smaller, you're blowing them around the board, or you're turning down the air pressure, and then you could change the shape of, like, with a little attachment to change how the air flows. But if you're probably not moving as much heat, and then it's not getting hot enough, and then you're turning it up, and then you're maybe burning it, or you're pushing the air too fast, and then it's moving off the board. Sometimes people use like super glue to try to tack it down so it doesn't move, just like if you have a big flat IC. Yeah, Bob's saying no. I feel like the super glue just gets everywhere, and then you end up just coating all your pads with super glue.
It's worse than that. The super glue turns into fumes, which then go into your eyes, and it stings a lot.
And you're allergic to super glue, Bob, right?
I am now, yeah.
That's a cyanide. Cyanide's a component of that too, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's cyanoacrylate.
That seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, so I definitely don't recommend super glue. It's really just getting the pressure right with the tweezers, because once you have everything tacked down, it's staying put, right? So then, you get everything tacked in 1 or 2 corners, and then you just move from there. The other thing we do is we take let me just focus this. So when you have to do a bunch of really tiny ICs, and it's like bridging no matter what you do, and even if you buy like the really thin, really expensive solder like I have here, this was like $112 for this roll. It's like a really large roll though. You're never gonna be able to get this fed without bridging. What we do is we just like put a bunch on there, and I've got no fume extractor because it's so loud, which is not great for Zoom calls, and then you just rub it over the back of all the pins really carefully, really quickly, and then the like reservoir that's like sitting here will just get like slowly, emptied into all of the pins. And if you do it at just the right pace with just the right size of reservoir, then you've not bridged.
All of the surface mount stuff, in my experience, there's a variety of techniques. One is if you're really doing this whole board and you wanted to do the whole board, I've got a paste dispenser, and you can drop out paste on all the pins, which is where a stencil would be even better if it was your design. And then you can reflow the entire board with just a hot plate, and you can get the whole thing in one go. Second to that, a air gun for what you've got now with the part kind of partially down would be helpful. But there is like no magic bullet. There's a million techniques. There's a lot of different strategies, and all of them vary depending on what you're trying to do. Some of them involve spending lots of money to solve the problem, and others of them are totally practice and preparation.
And then the one thing to note with your solder paste is 2 things. Okay, firstly, everybody here should start using lead-free solder. Don't be ridiculous. Every single surface, like if you look under the little brass tip cleaner I've got here, it's all covered in dust, and you don't want that to be lead dust. And in that dust, I did take a couple pictures under the microscope, so it's a gradient. If you're using solder paste and you're using a hot air gun, now you're blowing tiny little balls of dust that are probably getting progressively finer all over your workspace. It shouldn't be leaded, so just stop doing that. The second thing is, and I know you have leaded solder somewhere in your basements, like each and every one of you. I do. So the other thing is you really should buy your solder paste in small containers, small amounts, and put it in your freezer, and buy it when you need it, because it does go bad. And I have used expired paste, and it's awful. And if you've never used good paste before, then you're just sitting there wondering why you can't get it right. And the answer is your paste has expired. The flux just doesn't like hold it together anymore.
What's really satisfying is watching the surface tension actually align the parts. So you can have an IC that's slightly rotated and slightly offset, and then you hit it with the heat gun, and all of a sudden it just snaps into position as the solder flows.
Absolutely. Oh, and then just wanted to brag. I did get this one on the first try. I didn't have to reseat anything, and I didn't melt any of the LEDs. And yeah, it's not the smallest thing, but it's I mean, you can see like it's not the prettiest either. Some burning or some like melting of the top here, but nothing functional.
I think that's all flux left over on the top there, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that's flux.
Oh, I think what? Now I remember. I did use flux on like half of the board. I don't remember where, but that looks like where it was. I didn't bother to clean it.
Any other questions, anybody? All right. Anybody else got anything they want to share? Nick, you're too slow. Sorry.
I do have a question. I know you all want to get out of here. Probably got quite an appetite after seeing that squirrel. But I had a vacuum cleaner that I broke the pot on, and the pot that was in there is this tiny little 500K, switches to off, clicks to off. I used to click to off. I need to replace it with one about this size. If anybody's got one, Chris gave me one that's about twice the diameter of this, and it doesn't, I can't put the cover back on with that thing in there without doing a lot of surgery. So
those pots are all over Amazon. Like there's tons of them out there. And then you just got to find one that's got a switch built into it.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah. And I haven't contacted Davey to ask him about it either. But it's going on this little Carpet Pro vacuum cleaner that is otherwise perfectly functional. But this cheap little switch broke.
Casey looks like he's got a candidate there.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger, but I don't know if it'll work for you.
Yeah, I think that's the size that Chris gave me.
Oh, it is? Okay. Hey, wait a
that one's
I'm just kidding.
That one's smaller. Casey, does that one have a switch in it?
Yeah, it's got a switch on.
Second set of leads, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, see, there you go, Nick. I actually think that's the same size as the one you've got. The same size the one that Nick is after, because that's not the same size as the one that I have. That's a lot smaller.
Oh yeah, yeah. Where are you at, Casey? You know, Claire?
I am right next to you because I can send that out via USPS. So I'm right there next to you. I can drop this in the mail if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, this is a 6 amp, 125. I don't know what it is though for wattage. I think it's probably 500, probably above.
Well, so here's the thing though, is he needs a 500K pot, and that might actually be a variac in there, or a rheostat. That might be an on-off with the rheostat, I'm not sure. Close, but no cookie. Amazon as well, like I said, I can find you a part on Amazon if you don't want to look for one, but it was just that B500K part number, and if you poke around, you can find one. It's just you need one that's a double stack, because the bottom's the switch and the top is the pot, or vice versa.
Okay.
They're not hard to find. That's like a super common sort of the cheap pot lineup, which is why it died.
Yeah, if you could find me the link that to one that won't break.
The nice metal can one I gave you will last like another 50 or so years. That's about how old it is. So that one's good.
Maybe it's worth doing the surgery then.
All right. Anybody else got anything they wanted to share?